So welcome everybody. I'm Jane Irwin.
Sharon McKenzie.
And this Teaching Tuesday is brought to you by Virtual REI Academy. Kind of like Nicole and James, we started this back in January, just trying to give back and get some information out there and kind of teach people some things to do and sometimes more in our case, things not to do, just to be more successful. It's gone pretty well. I think in the beginning we were just teaching a little bit and trying to spread some information, but August we kind of got the idea to maybe bring some other people on because there's so many things in real estate you can do. So we're bringing some other people on to talk about different things. I see Carlin's on here. She was talking about midterms, and that was a really big eye opener for us. Anita was on here with environmental information. We had Mark Jackson talking about Puerto Rico. So we're just trying to spread a wealth of different things that you might not think about. And we're really excited about tonight's guest. Mr. Bill Cook decided to come on for us. And he is just a whiz with options. He's been investing in real estate for over 30 years. He has some of the best teachers in Pete Fortunato, Dyke Spotiford, Jack Miller, David Tilney. So he's studied under some really heavy hitters that do different things. And for us I think it was 2020, maybe right after COVID or whatever, we saw Bill talk for the first time. And it really grabbed us because it was, we've always been just cash buyers. You just buy the property or find private money. So we never really thought outside the box, but Bill even goes farther with what box. So he's going to talk about options, which we're really taking a look at. We love the strategy, and we haven't done a lot of them, but we certainly get to spend a lot of time with Bill, and we appreciate that. And he's teaching us a lot about the options, and we thought it would be great if he could come on here and tell us a little bit of a snippet of what he knows, which we would be here for days and days if it was about everything. So without further ado, thank you very much, Bill, for spending an hour with us. We appreciate it, and it's all yours.
Well, it's my pleasure very much, and thank you all for having me. And a snippet on options is a great way to describe 30 minutes of an option presentation on something that I usually teach for 2 days. So this will just kind of be our broad overview. Have y'all shared the screen with me where I can share my screen?
Yes.
Hot diggity dog. Whoever said yes, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go to that. And I'm just getting rid of some of this junk that will be in my way. And y'all should be able to see my screen where it says creative deal structuring. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, now one thing I'm going to ask for is I am doing this program. We just relocated about a week ago to Venice, Florida. And my wife and I, since 2018, you'll see our horse ranch in a minute, but we sold our horse ranch in 2018, and we've been living in a motorhome ever since traveling the country. So we just relocated for the winter down to Florida. You may think, why would you relocate to Florida in August? It's because we're not real bright. But anyway, here we are. But if you can't hear me or if my voice breaks up, just someone kick in and let me know. Or Jane, if you'll call me on the phone, I'm just suspect of we're using a hotspot, but we only have one bar here. So evidently they haven't invented cell towers in this portion of Venice, Florida. So let's get started. And we're going to be doing 30 minutes of this program, then 30 minutes of answering questions. So if you would write your questions down as we go, but I am going to ask a couple times to get your feedback or get you to answer a question for me, which I'd greatly appreciate. And I think a lot of you are newer investors. So what you're about to see is going to kind of like blow your mind. And sometimes just seeing what's possible it kind of gets you started on the road. And I know that very early on, and you heard Jane mention the teachers that I went to, and my 3 primary teachers, as you'll see in a little bit, were Dyke Spotiford and Pete Fortunato and Jack Miller. And when I was a baby real estate investor, that's who I was going to. And I didn't understand a doggone word they said. I mean, for the first year or two, just they spoke and I got nothing. but I knew I was learning the language of creative deal structuring and just stuck with it. So if I blow you away, don't get frustrated. Just understand this will kind of let you see what is possible out there. And this is just scratching the surface. So how do you learn to be a creative deal maker? And just know, and this will help you not get frustrated, that is a learned language. It's like learning a language. And if you took a weekend seminar in a foreign language, and then someone said, are you fluent now? Of course, you're not going to be fluent, not in 2 days. It takes, decades to really become fluent at something. And that's going to be the key, is just, you got to be at it for a while. And just know that nobody, absolutely nobody, is born being a great real estate investor, being a great creative deal structuring thinker. Those people are made, they're developed. It doesn't just happen. So what is the key? Or I'm going to use an example of somebody on here. I want you to unmute someone who I don't know and talk to me. And the question I have for you is this: is it hard to learn to speak Chinese? Who wants to work with me on this one? Someone unmute. You got to talk to me.
I can work with you on it. This is Carlin.
Hey, Carlin.
Hi, Jill.
You say Carlin. You say Carlin, right?
Yes.
Okay, Carlin. And is it hard to learn to speak Chinese?
I think it's subjective on what you consider hard, would be my answer.
Do you speak Chinese?
I do not.
Okay, so it being a completely different language and being an Oriental versus more like an English, German, or French or Italian language, do you think it would be pretty tough to learn it?
I think so, relative to some of the Latin-based languages that I'm familiar with.
Yeah. And so most people would say that is easy, but I'm going to prove to you without a doubt that Chinese is a very easy language to learn. And here's the proof. Right now in China, there's a billion 5-year-olds who run around that country speaking Chinese fluently. They're 5 years old, which means their brains are not fully developed, yet they speak Chinese fluently. So, Carlin, what is the secret to these 5-year-olds being able to speak Chinese fluently?
Being embedded in it every day, all the time.
Immersion.
Yes, or immersion is the
it's
other
immersion. Yeah, that's a good word for it. It's just that you just have to. That's how Kim and I learned creative deal structuring or real estate investing or being a landlord or all the different things we learned. Just understand that we did a deep dive into it and didn't come back up for air. There's no secret. It's just a lot of hard work. And where do you learn how to be a good creative deal maker? And the best place to do it is just, if I just dropped you in China, in a city where no one spoke a word of English and there's no Chinese teachers there, you just were there for 10 years, you would learn Chinese. I mean, to survive, you would learn the language. So for me, the best way I learned creative deal structuring is I was getting face-to-face with sellers on a regular basis. And that by far got me thinking, how can I make this deal work? This didn't work. How about that? But also I attended Real Estate Investor Association meetings regular. I went to 3 of the very, very best creative deal structuring teachers in the country. Maybe for you, is coaching and mentoring, maybe mastermind programs work for you. For me, also, another big thing I did is when I was at the RIAs, I spent a lot of time with the gray hair and bald heads. In other words, investors who had a lot of experience, who had been investing for 30 years or longer. That's who I spent my time with, not the newer investors. And I kept asking them questions. I'd buy them lunch. I would go cut their yard, whatever I had to do to be around those experienced investors. And also, like this meeting, networking. So get around like-minded thinkers and stay around them on a very regular basis. So these are my 3 teachers. So you're looking at my wife on the right-hand side and me on the left-hand side. Again, this picture was taken a very long time ago. And Peter Fortunato and Jack Miller and Dyke Spotterford were the 3 we latched on to back in the 90s. And to this day, I still attend every course that I possibly can, but pretty much every course Pete Fortunato teaches and every course that Dyke Spotterford teaches. I will tell you that Jack Miller, who was just incredible in how he thought and how he structured deals, kind of like the Godfather to us, he passed away in 2009. However, if you want his courses, if you want to read what he wrote, then it's all available at cashflowdepot.com. And I think a lifetime membership there. They don't offer monthly. It's just a straight lifetime membership. is only $299, and there's got to be 60, 70 real estate investing courses you can do, on that website. And again, this is just one of those master thinkers. So just because he's passed, thank God we still have his information. So about me and Kim, please know that there's nothing special about us. We're just mom and pop investors. I don't have a big team around me. We don't go out and do 30 deals a month. We were doing somewhere between 10 to 15 deals a year. And we just did it for several decades. And we kept a lot of our properties as rental properties. That was our secret, nothing magic. So we've been at this for more than 30 years. Our portfolio of real estate consists of single family rentals, notes, because I'm a lender, options, as you'll see tonight, and a small mobile home park. And I love my small mobile home park. In fact, if you ever want really great real estate investing stories, make sure you buy a mobile home park. Best stories ever. You could be at any table with any real estate investor and you will top whatever story that investor has, because you own a mobile home park. Your story is going to be more interesting and more colorful. Primarily, really only, Kim and I now teach advanced creative deal structuring. So I don't teach like the individual tools like subject to deals or owner carries or wrap mortgages or owner financing. I don't do that anymore, but I do teach advanced creative deal structuring courses. Also, Kim and I teach our options course twice a year. We'll teach it again at the beginning of February, and then again next June. But if you want to learn more about us, just go to billingkimcook.com, and that's our website. And one of the things you'll like on the website, by the way, is I've done a lot of interviews where I'm interviewing some really great real estate investors. And those interviews are there, and these aren't 10-minute interviews. These are hour to an hour and a half interviews. And the main thing I'm digging at is how did they get started? Why do they stick with it? Why real estate investing? But more importantly, why didn't they quit when they hit the proverbial brick wall? Because most investors I know either never start or they quit. That's 99% of them. They quit or they never start. So the ones that succeed, you want to be asking, you might want to write down some of the questions I'm asking these investors and ask the same questions some of the investors who are around you. But anyway, that's how you can find us. So let's move on. And Jane wanted me to talk about options tonight. So we're going to talk about options, but not options like you think of options. So what is an option? An option is a right. It's not an obligation. In other words, I have the right to do something, but I don't have to do something. So what does that mean? Well, with a bilateral contract, think of a purchase and sale agreement when you're going to buy a house. So when that's all signed by all the parties, the seller must sell and the buyer must buy. There's no leeway. Both parties have to perform. Now, with a unilateral contract, in other words, a one-direction contract, the seller must sell, just like above. However, when I'm using an option to buy a property, the buyer may buy. And there's a huge world of difference between may buy and must buy. May buy is a lot safer than must buy, especially when you're in uncertain times when it concerns real estate. Can you tell me where the real estate market is going to be a year from now? The answer is no, you cannot. Nobody can. So the market could be doing great a year from now, and the market could have tanked a year from now. We just don't know. But I do know that when I'm in uncomfortable times, I turn to a lot more option work than I do purchase and sale agreements. And you'll see why here in a second. So what most people know about options is just the phrase lease options, lease options, lease options, like it's one word, lease options. Well, it's not one word. The correct term is a lease with an option to buy. And there's two tools that work here, the lease and the option. And a lease gives someone use of the property, so they can treat the property as if it's their own. They can sleep in it, stay in it, cook in it. It's their property to use, but it's not their property to own. An option gives someone the right to buy the property. So they haven't bought it. They don't have any ownership interest, but they do have the right to buy the property, but they're not obligated to buy the property. So whenever you're using 2 or more creative deal structuring tools to make a single transaction possible, which is usually the case. Most of the deals Kim and I do, 4, 5, 6, 7 different creative deal structuring tools are at work to make that single transaction work. So whenever you're using multiple creative deal structuring tools to make a single deal work, we call that structure stacking. Again, when you're doing advanced deals, that's just a common thing you do. Now, most investors never ever scratch the surface of an option's full potential, and it's due to a lack of knowledge and a lack of experience, because all they know about is lease options. So I'm going to show you 2 tonight that will let you just kind of see a little bit about what's behind the curtain and what these things can do. So the first one was a deal that Kim and I did back in 2020 on William Street. Now you can tell from this house, and what I was doing is you should know first, I'm a door knocker. 99% of all the deals I've ever done have come from knocking on doors. So I don't do mail outs, I don't do bandit signs, I don't do advertising. I just go out and knock doors. And I've made my living knocking on people's doors and being invited into their house since I was 12 years old. I'm 63. So that's 51 years of experience of being a door knocker. And the reason why I knock on doors is it's very effective for me. Meaning, if I'm out door knocking in a neighborhood, 8 out of 10 sellers will invite me in. Let me say that again. 8 out of 10 sellers will invite me in. And for many, many years, I took groups of 60 people out with me when I went door knocking so they could watch what I did. And I would tell them before we ever went out, 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in, all of us. And nobody believed me. And every time that we hit that number, so you can look me up on Facebook or try to find sometime that didn't work. It just flat works. Just know what to do at the door. And that was the case here. I was working in a neighborhood. It's in Bartow County, Georgia. It's one of our favorite neighborhoods. And as you can tell, this house is not in distress. Everything looks good. And I didn't think this house was for sale. So I want to show you my approach here. When I knocked on the door and the man answered, I just said, I love your house. I love your street. I love your neighborhood. My wife and I would love to own a home here. Do you know anyone who's thinking about selling? And he just kind of lowered his head and lowered his voice. And he goes, yeah, me. I'm probably going to be forced to sell pretty soon. Now, when a seller tells you that, and that type of voice inflection and that type of body stance, what's the first question you ask? Why? Because obviously, I don't have to be a rocket scientist or read body language to know that he was not happy with the thought of having to sell his home. So your natural question is going to be, why? Why are you having to sell your house? And he said, well, I can't afford the property taxes. The property taxes have shot up so much over the last few years. I'm on a fixed income. My wife and I are on a fixed income, and we can't afford this. We got 3 years left on our mortgage, and then it's paid off, and then I can afford it, but I can't afford it right now. And again, this was just from door knocking. And a lot of people in this market since 2012, when the market really heated up, can no longer afford their insurance or their property taxes. If you're out there and you're talking to sellers, you're hearing this very regular, because insurance and taxes have gone up so much. They're making even free and clear properties non-affordable. I'm in Florida, Venice, Florida, and on the West Coast. We just had a hurricane go by a week ago. The insurance down here is keeping people from being able to buy houses, and it's keeping people from being able to keep their houses. So this isn't just in a Georgia thing. This is all over. So anyway, I asked him, I said, well, do you want to sell? And he goes, absolutely not. He goes, I love my home. I thought I'd be here for another 10 years. I don't want to sell. And I said, let me ask this. I said, would you trade me a glass of sweet tea and a seat at your kitchen table if I could show you a way where you can keep your home and never pay property taxes again? And he kind of laughed. He goes, yeah, sure. I said, no, I'm dead serious. Would you trade me a glass of sweet tea and a seat at your kitchen table if I could show you how to keep your home and never pay property taxes again? Now, what if that were you on the front porch? Would that interest you? If you know that your back's against the wall and you're going to have to sell the house that you love, might you say, hey, yeah, come on into the kitchen table. Here's a glass of sweet tea. So that's what happened here. Now, what you're looking at now is the most important document I use at a seller's kitchen table. Now, I write this, draw this out on a piece of paper that I asked for from the seller, but it's called a T-bar. And you can see the lines, they make a T. Left-hand side is current position. Right-hand side is potential position. What that means is I'm asking the seller a lot of questions. I'm trying to find out where it hurts. I'm trying to find out the pain point. I'm trying to get the answer to the question of why are you selling such a nice house like this? That's what I'm doing here. And on the right-hand side, as they give me an answer, as they answer each one of my questions, I know that this is a problem because it's a pain point. I've got to solve this pain point. Now, I'm not thinking about how to structure it. I'm not thinking about what creative deal structuring tools will I use. None of that's going through my head. I'm just trying to understand the problem first. And then when I'm done, then I'll start thinking about what tools I can use to creatively structure a win-win deal for us that solves the seller's problems. So I'll give you an example of this man. And so on the left-hand side, those were his problems. But people always ask me, how do I know how to creatively structure the deal? And the answer is the other party tells me what they need done. And so watch. So what he said is, I don't want to sell right now. On the right-hand side, I wrote down, you don't have to sell right now. Did that solve that problem of him not wanting to sell right now? Yes. Now, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Remember that. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need to make sure that this happens. And if I'm able to solve this problem, there's a good chance I'll be able to buy this property. So he said his property taxes are too high. And I said, we can lower your property taxes. Left-hand side, I don't know how to fight my property taxes because I asked him, why don't you fight your property taxes? And he told me, you can't fight City Hall and win. And I told him I've been fighting my property taxes for 16 years and I was really good at it. And I had an 84% winning percentage. Also, he said, we can't afford to pay our property taxes. And I said, and I lowered my voice when I said this, I said, you'll never have to pay your property taxes again. And that got his, he just looked at me, he just kept shaking his head going, I don't understand. I said, don't worry. And I said, what he said to me is, we don't want to move. And the last one I thought to myself was, you don't have to move. Now that I understand his situation, now I understand why he doesn't want to sell this house. Now my job is to come up with the right tools in order to make this happen. And I'll show you how we structure the deal. The fair market value on his house was $175,000. I told him I would fight his property taxes for him and that I would pay his property taxes from now on. He never had to pay his property taxes again. But in return for doing these things that allowed him to stay in his house, that they would agree to give me a 30-year right to buy his house for $175,000. So that $175,000 is going to be my purchase price with an option. We call that a strike price. So we've now set up on the price. I don't have to buy it now. I can buy it anytime in the next 30 years. Now, here's the kicker. For every dollar I pay in property taxes, $1.50 is taken off the strike price. Say that again. $1.50 comes off the strike price for every dollar I pay in property taxes. So every year I pay as property taxes, my purchase price lowers by $1.50 for every dollar I spend. That's a 50% return on my investment. Not bad, huh? And you might be thinking, why would he ever agree to this? Because he wants to keep the house, because he doesn't want to lose his house. That's why. And he wanted to be there for he said, I want to be here for about 10 more years. And then I probably will move closer to my kids. And I said, okay, even though we have a 30-year option, I won't exercise the option for the first 10 years. Now, did this offer that I've made, does this solve all of his problems? Yes. He's able to keep his property. He doesn't have to sell. He doesn't have to pay his property taxes. And he'll be able to stay in the house for 10 years. Everything that he wanted, he's getting. Now, this is a little bit unconventional, a little bit creative, but that's what this is. So with William Street, we call this a strategic option, meaning the owner doesn't want to sell right now. So this is a long-term hold strategy. It's strategic. And this is a perfect deal to do with my self-directed retirement account. And by now you might have started hearing about self-directed retirement accounts. So when I go to pay the property taxes on this man's house, the money will be paid by my self-directed retirement account. But that means one day when I exercise my right to buy this property, the profit I make off this deal will go into my self-directed retirement account, which is all the money coming out of it is a tax-free benefit to me. So this is a zero tax deal. Not bad, huh? So that's the first way. I just wanted you to kind of see behind the curtain. But now let's look at an option. Can they be used to sell a property? So you just saw me lining one up to buy, but now let's go to the other side of the table. So this is the horse ranch Kim and I sold in 2018. And it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath brick ranch, a lot of outbuildings, 34 acres, fenced, gorgeous, nothing wrong with it, beautiful home. And it appraised for $505,000. But when we put it on the market in 2018, I went to my realtor, who also understands that I think creatively. His name was Rayburn Taylor. And I said, I'm going to sell the house. I'm going to have an asking price of $497,900, which is just a little bit above the appraised value. And he goes, well, that's a good price. I said, now I also will sell it for $575,000. Now your question may be, how on earth can I sell a $505,000 house for $575,000? And the answer is, I was willing to sell it and give owner financing. So whenever I'm giving somebody terms to buy my house, I get to name a price that's usually a good bit above fair market value. So I'll sell it where we're doing owner financing for $575,000. Also, if someone has a property or something that I like better, I'll be willing to trade them my property for whatever it is they have. They've got like my house better than what they have, and I've got like what they have better than my house. If that lines up, we'll do the deal. Or I'll sell my property for $300,000 cash. Now, I want you to look at those 4 choices. If it were you, if this was your house, $505,000, I want you to put in chat, and Jane, if you can tell me what people say, which way would you prefer to sell? Number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4? What would you do?
You got option 2, and then somebody else said 2 for terms. So far we got 2 for 2.
Out of 15 people on the call, only 2 people answered?
So far. Come on, guys, don't be shy. Oh, here we come. There's some more.
We got another for 2.
Yeah, I'm not gonna beg anybody to do it. You can participate, not participate. But anyway, you may be thinking, what did I choose to do? Well, the first question you may have is, what's the difference between number 1 and number 4? Because they're both all cash. One's for $497,900 and one's for $300,000. So what's the difference between the two? The answer is $197,900. So which one did I go with? Number 4. Is this the one you chose? I bet it's not. So now let's take a look at why I chose number 4. Why did I sell a $500,000 house for $300,000? Now, the first thing you need to know is my wife met this couple, and she wanted that couple to buy her house, and she didn't care if we made $1 a year. They were going to be the owners of our house, period. And Kim said, I don't care how you structure it, you make this happen. So we have a appraised value of $505,000. We have an asking price of $497,900. And what the buyer told me was they needed to sell their house first. So they wanted to do a contingency contract on my property, which meant they had the right to buy my property. I can't sell my property to anybody else. And they don't have to buy my property unless their house sells. Now, if their house doesn't sell or they don't get the price they want, then they don't have to buy my property. Doesn't that sound a lot like an option? They have the right, they may buy my property, but I have to sell to them. That's exactly what this is. If you're a realtor, a contingency contract is an option contract. Y'all just don't call it that. So anyway, the buyer said he had to sell his house first. And I said, well, you can't get a $500,000 mortgage. And he said, well, I can get a $500,000 mortgage, but I have to sell my property first. So they said, no, I can't do that. I went to a mortgage broker and I tried, but they said no. Now, this is where most people stop. They don't ask the next obvious question. He went to a mortgage broker. He couldn't get 505. So what's the question you should ask? What can you get? What did you qualify for? And he said he qualified for a $300,000 mortgage. Now, remember my wife's marching orders. I don't care if we make $1 a year. I want Jacobus and Carla to buy my house. So I agreed to sell our house for $300,000 to the buyers. Now, the first question I ask is, do you think they were happy? Of course they were happy. Was Kim happy? Yeah, she was happy. They bought her house. Was I happy? Hell no. I just lost $200,000. I'm not happy. So I had to fix this and do some creative structuring to make this deal work. So here's how I structured it. I said, I will sell you my house for $300,000, but I'm going to get an option from you at the closing table to buy my ranch back anytime in the next 30 years for $300,000. And Jacoba said, well, now, wait, how does this work? I said, easy. At closing, I'm going to give you the deed to our horse ranch, and you're going to give me $300,000. And in the next 30 years, sometime in the next 30 years, I have the right to give you back $300,000, and I'll get the deed back to my property. So was I happy with this transaction? Yes, obviously. Was Kim? Yes. Were the buyers? They hated this idea. They're like, you can come in anytime in the next 30 years and just take our home from us. And I said, yes. So I had to structure further. So we're working here. I've got, we're selling for 300. I've got an option to buy it back anytime in the next 30 years for 300. And so I asked him, I said, how long will it take you to get your house sold? And he said, I'll have it sold within probably 5-6 months. I said, okay. So I gave the buyer an option to buy our option anytime in the next 12 months for $97,900. So you understand the deal. We're going to go to a closing in 2018, and he's going to buy our property for $300,000. And he's going to give me an option to buy that property back anytime in the next 30 years for $300,000. Then he has 12 months to get his house sold. And if he does, then he can take $197,900 of the proceeds from that sale and give it to me. In other words, he'll be buying my option back. So now the buyers are happy. Kim's happy. I'm happy. And you know this because this deal happened. This is how this deal was structured. So pretty doggone neat, huh? So an option is one of the most powerful creative deal structuring tools on the planet, yet very few investors know how to use it. So you just saw me use one to be able to have the right to buy it. And now you saw me use another to be able to get my house sold for $300,000 that I actually sold for $497,900. And actually, if you want to know the truth, when you see this whole deal on what really happened, I sold it for a bit more than I sold it for over $510,000. But again, I don't have time to go into that tonight. So will it benefit you to know how to do option work? Can you see yourself using this tool along with all the others that can be in your creative deal structuring toolbox to allow you to make the impossible deals possible? Are you willing to do the work it takes to learn the language of creative deal structuring? Only you can know that. I will tell you, and this is my last slide, now I can go to answers, that I'm teaching an advanced creative deal structuring class called Structure Stacking, and this is very advanced. So I'll be showing you different deals that Kim and I have done where we're using multiple creative deal structuring tools to make a single transaction work. So I don't explain how to do a subject to deal or how to do owner financing or how to do an option, but I will show you how to use the tools together. Again, this is advanced. And if you want to take a look to see kind of what I'm covering, for the last 3 weeks, I've been doing something called a free deal school on Zoom. And if you go to our website, billingkimcook.com, and you go to upcoming events, click on the free deal school, and you can see the last 3 classes I've taught, and I'll be teaching another one tomorrow night. It's from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time, but you can sign up for that one also. But this class will be taught in Tampa. It's going to be on September 16th and 17th, 2 days. You can also watch it on Zoom. It's $597 a person. You can bring a guest for $397. And again, to register for What Box, and that's the name of the class, is What Box, the name of the seminar. And just so you know, the early bird ends September the 10th, which is this Sunday, and the prices go up by $100. So if you are interested, you might want to do something quicker versus taking a longer time. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So I'm going to end my slideshow. And I'm yours.
Anybody?
I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions with that. That's a pretty advanced strategy. This,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you approach it the same way if you have a seller who's in pre-foreclosure where you'd come pay off?
No.
Okay.
I pre-foreclosure. Okay, define for me pre-foreclosure, Carlin.
Like if they've got the Liz pendants, but they haven't gone through the whole legal process yet. If we can't
But
do it,
the lease pendants is out there.
yeah.
Okay, so I live in Georgia, work in Georgia. So you're in a judicial foreclosure state which uses mortgages. I'm in a non-judicial foreclosure state where we use deeds of trust. Okay, so you use lease pendances, we do not. We just have to advertise it for 4 consecutive weeks and it goes to the auction and that's it. So much faster in Georgia than it is where you are. But every state has a lot of laws on the book that protect homeowners to keep people taking advantage of them. And so if I am now, would I use an option to stop someone's foreclosure? It really depends on the situation, but more than likely not. And I've done foreclosure work now for 20 some odd years. If I am going to buy a property at foreclosure, I'm going to buy it. And I never have ever allowed the homeowner to stay in the house. They have to move out. I have to get the deed and they have to move out. I do not want to have them say I was, preying on them or I promised to sell them back the house or anything like that. So you got to be very careful when someone's in foreclosure. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I was just trying to figure out like kind of some of the best ways to help out folks that are in pre-foreclosure that, maybe they just had some medical bills or something. And, I guess maybe it is just a.
Well, you got to be careful giving legal advice first off, but I will use stories. I teach a lot with stories. And so I may say something like, a friend of mine was facing a situation similar to yours where they just got behind on medical bills, but they could afford the house payment now. But they just, they're 3 months behind and they just need a little bit of help. And in their case, they went to go see Brian Kahn, who's an attorney in Cartersville, who's a bankruptcy attorney, and they filed Chapter 13 and they were able to keep their house and work out the problem. That said, there's a number of people that I've dealt with over the years that are in bankruptcy or in foreclosure. And no matter what, they'll never be able to keep that house. They can't afford the payments. They're not back on their feet. They're not going to be back on their feet. And for them to declare bankruptcy, it's just a waste of time and their money. They need to get into a place that's more affordable, move in with family, move to somewhere else, but be done with the house. So I'm very careful in giving legal advice. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny because it's one of my attorneys who suggested potentially looking into that strategy to help with folks, but I agree. Stay away from it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just I get a lot of phone calls. I don't coach and I don't mentor, but I give everybody my phone number. So you're welcome to call me when you're working a deal. And I've had so many phone calls over the year. I've never been through this myself, but I've gotten so many phone calls over the years where someone overpromised and underdelivered to someone in foreclosure and let them stay in the house, and it blew up in their face. And I'm like, well, and some of the times they called me first to ask me what they should do. And I told them they did the opposite thing and then it blew up in their face. And now they're coming back to me and they're like, I need your help. I was like, well, you should have taken my help before. Good luck to you. So we got to be careful. Yes, Susan.
First, let me say thank you for being here.
Well,
this
you got to understand,
is pretty
Erica's
cool
on this
stuff.
call. Erica's on this call and she had pictures of me that were compromising. And she said, if I did not agree to be on this program, that these pictures would make it to the internet. And it was a neighbor's goat. It was an unusual angle when the picture was taken. It's not my fault, but Erica,
It's always your
emailed me
fault.
to get me here.
Well,
Thanks for
for
coming,
no
Bill.
reason. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
All right. I'm also 63, Bill. I would not enter into a 30-year option to buy. Now, I've told friends and family multiple times, I intend to live to 100. Well, between, just us girls, I mean, who knows if I'll actually make it. So, 30 years for a 63-year-old is a stretch. Are you still doing that?
Yeah.
At
I'm
60
when I'm 80 years old and I need somebody to wipe my butt, what do you think I will use as payment to have people take care of me when I'm older? Kim and I don't have kids, so it's just us. And so I will do a 30-year option because I know that if I'm not here, somebody else will be. But you don't have to do a 30-year option. I just did one on a mobile home park about 3 months ago where it was a 50-year option. And I also did another one end of last year where it was a 1-year option. So the option can be any length you want it. So if you don't want to do 30 years, don't do 30 years.
I was just wondering what your practice is today.
I don't have one. Yeah, people always ask me what, when I'm as a lender, what are your terms? I'm like, are you kidding me? I will loan you money at 0% interest. How's that? Nothing down, 0% interest. But I'm going to want something back. And that might be a performance note that I'm going to lend with, or it might be a performance note and an option that we're going to work with. But I'll structure it all kind of different ways. So think of it this way. When you're dealing with someone who's good at creative deal structuring, it is not a case of size 8 brown loafers for everybody.
Mhm.
These are custom made shoes. When I'm doing a deal, you got to think like a cobbler, and I'm
Yes.
custom making shoes. And to give you an example of that at work, Susan, let's say I came to you, let's say you're a cobbler, okay? And you're old enough to, what a cobbler is. There's some young bucks on here that are like going, cobbler, dessert? But we'll let them just suffer because I don't speak down to people who are in their 20s. We'll just talk to people that know stuff. So anyway, so let's say you're a cobbler and I go to you and I need a pair of custom made shoes. What would you do? How would you handle that? You're the cobbler, start. Where would you begin?
Well, looking at the size, obviously, you're looking at the size of the foot. That's the
No,
first thing.
the last thing you're gonna do is do the size. The least important thing is the size of my foot.
Really?
Try again. I want custom made shoes.
Uh-huh. I want to know what they're made of. I want to know what they're going to look like. I want to know the color. I want to know the style. I want to know the price. What custom
Size of
made
heel,
shoes,
what's the bottom
I-
made
I
out
would-
of?
I wouldn't. do-
Laces or slip on? How will they be used?
Yeah,
Am I gonna use it to play basketball in? Am I gonna use it to go to somebody's wedding?
yeah.
Am I gonna use it to
Right.
dance in? Am I gonna be using it to knock doors in? Those are different shoes.
Mhm.
So you're gonna be asking me all kind of questions. If it was the roles were reversed, I'm gonna ask you tons of questions so I understand how the shoes will be used
Right.
and then how you want them to look. But let's say you want a pair of black shoes, okay? I say, what color do you want them? You say black. How many different shades of black are there?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, there's
Never
tons of
thought-
shades, right? So what I would do is once I had a picture in my mind of what your shoe is going to look like, I'm going to sketch it out and use watercolors and draw and color this shoe that you described. What are the chances when I show you the shoe that's in my head? What are the chances that's going to be the same shoe that's in your head?
Very small. chances.
0. Not going to happen. And you're going to say, well, no, I didn't want thick laces. I wanted thin laces, and I wanted a heel a little bit lower, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to be a little bit wider here. And I need this kind of bottom, and I don't want, I want a darker black, not a lighter black. So you're going to go through all this. And so I'm going to have to do another watercolor and show it to you. What are the chances that's going to be right? Not at all.
Real
And so I'm
small.
gonna have to show you another one. I may go through 5, 6, 7, 10 pictures, drawing, and finally, as you tell me what I'm doing wrong, what's not working for you, I will finally have it where you look and say, that's it. That's the shoe I want. Then we'll talk about price. Because I can't do price in the beginning because I don't know what the shoe's gonna look like.
That's right.
And then the very last thing I'm going to do, the very last thing I'm going to do is what?
The size.
Do size. So let me tell you what most real estate investors do when they're making an offer. The first thing they do is size the foot. No questions. It's going to be, well, let's see, if you want $100,000 for the house, I can only offer you 65,000. Done. They never ask why. There's no T-bar. There's no questions. They're not drawing the picture. They're not understanding the seller's problem, and they can't understand why they don't get more deals.
I
But
see your
you
point.
saw a guy tonight where he wanted 175,000 for his house, and I said yes. If he would have said 200,000 for his house, do you know what I would have said? Yes. Because I'm going to hold this house for a long time. But good. Thank you for playing with me, Susan.
I see your point. It's, the thing about creative financing is solving problems. And if you don't know what the problems are, you don't know what you're solving for. I mean, it's really that simple.
And if you don't use T-bars, you cannot understand the problem. That's why the T-bar, I saw that the first time in about 1999, and it changed my entire world. I don't sit down with a seller now without doing a T-bar. And most of the world doesn't use T-bars because I don't even know why they don't use T-bars. I don't know how you do this job without not understanding someone's problem. Okay, I had and I apologize, I'm dyslexic. But
It's
Mrs.
Deidre.
Deidre Bruton. That okay? Sorry, the first name got me. I'm just seeing lots of letters. But go ahead.
Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate you as well. It was a great presentation. I guess the question I had, and I just lost my train of thought, but let me think about it. Okay, you enter into this deal or option to buy for 30
Which
years
one?
or however long the term.
Wait, are you talking about one deal or the other? Or are you just
I'm
on general?
in general.
Okay, got
What
it.
if
Keep going.
what if down the line they want to sell the property to someone else for more money and all that kind of stuff? Do they still have control of their, I mean, is it just a lock in with you for 30 years? What can they do?
How many realtors do we have on this call? Do we have any realtors? Is anybody a realtor? Unmute if you're a realtor. Really?
Yes,
no
sir.
real. Oh, you're a realtor.
Yes.
Who's talking?
Roy.
Right.
Roy? Okay, Roy. Let's go back to my ranch that I was selling. And the buyer wanted to do a contingency contract. So let's say we sign the contingency contract that says I'm going to sell to him for 300,000, or I'm going to sell him to him for whatever. I'm sorry, for 497.9. And he has the right to buy my house for 47.9, but it's contingent upon him selling his house first anytime in the next 6 months. Got it? So we signed the contract. Now, 5 days later, somebody shows up on my front doorsteps and says, Bill, I'll pay you $1 million for your house. Can I just say, well, I'm not going to sell to the couple who want to buy our house. I'll just sell it for $1 million. Can I just ignore the contract, Roy?
No, once you have a contract, seller is obligated, but especially the way you have it written out with the options, the buyer has that may or must option, which is a very cool approach.
Yeah. So again, in the case if I would have signed the contract the way my buyer for the ranch wanted me to do it, I can't change my mind. That's
no, exactly. You're locked in.
I'm locked
already
in.
accepted the contract. Now,
But he doesn't have to buy. He doesn't have to buy my ranch. But I have to sell to him. And even though someone comes up 3 days later and says, "I'll pay you $1 million, Bill," I can't do anything about it because I'll get sued, and he'll win.
Correct.
The man I have a contract with will win because we have a signed contract. That's the way an option works. So let's say with the second guy, let's say 5 years into it, he's like, well, Bill, I need to sell my house now. Now, might I have that conversation with him? Yes, I might. Now, do I have to buy the house from him? The answer is no. Can he sell the house to somebody else? The answer is yes, but it will be subject to my option. My option doesn't go away. Whoever buys the house, the option will survive the closing. How about them apples? So do you think any buyer is going to buy his house knowing that I have the right to buy that house for $175,000 and I'm going to be doing the property taxes? And for every time I pay for the property taxes, my strike price reduces $1.50. Do you think anybody's going to buy that property from him? And the answer is
No, because the same term would also apply where they could buy out the option for the 197, correct?
yep. So
Yeah,
going
so-
back going back to
So Bill, I
standing
have a
with-
quick question.
wait, hang on one second. I want to finish this thought out so y'all can see what's going in my head. My option is secured to the property. So when I get an option from somebody, let's use the case of William Street, I will secure that option against the property using a deed of trust.
Yeah.
If I was in Florida, I would use a mortgage. Now, Roy will tell you that the only thing a mortgage can be used for, or a deed of trust can be used for, is to secure a promissory note to a property. Right, Roy?
Correct.
And you'd be wrong.
Ah, I knew I was
A
walking into a
security
trap.
deed, yeah, you were, sorry. But a security deed and a mortgage, they secure promises. Any promise. It could be a promissory note. It could be an option agreement. It could be a promise to go walk my dog at 12 noon every day, and you're putting up your property as collateral for that promise. Now, almost nobody knows that you can use a mortgage or a deed of trust to secure an option or anything else to a property. It's just not a known thing. People only use security deeds and mortgages to secure promissory notes, but that's not how they're built. That's not what the tool actually does. It's just everybody else's habit. And I remember I stole this line from Pete Fortunato, but I was talking to an attorney one day and he said, you can't do that. And I said, why? He goes, well, it's just, yeah, I've never done it this way before. And I said, I'm not going to let your traditions affect my transactions. I said, give me the code section that says what I'm doing is against the law. And he couldn't do it. So that's the way I did the deal. But anyway, to finish up the thought, the question was, what if this man decides to sell in 5 years? He really can't sell to someone else. He's locked into me. But might we have a discussion? Maybe he'll lower the price some if I go ahead and buy now. Might he give me owner financing if I go ahead and buy now? Might he give me an option for the property he's moving to if I let him out of this option? There's so many things I can do. I'm going to have a conversation with the man. So I'm not going to just say no. I'm going to say, let's sit down, let's have a glass of sweet tea, and let's talk this thing out. Got very quiet. Okay, we have 7 minutes left, so I'm going to tell you the story about Whatbox. So I have this seminar coming up, right? And it's called Whatbox. I want to remind you also, I've done 3 one-hour deal schools leading up till tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's the 4th and last. And if you want to see creative deal structuring at work, go to our website, free sign up. We already have the first 3 deal schools posted. You can just sit there and watch them. They're on YouTube. And you might want to watch the first one first, because that's the case where I used an option where I loaned a guy money on a mobile home park. But in loaning him money on the mobile home park, he also gave me an option to buy a 10% interest in his park anytime in the next 50 years for $1,000. Now tell me that wasn't valuable. So you're going to sit back, scratch your head going, what? But you'll see the documents and that will help out. But anyway, this goes back to the early 2000s. I was working on a deal and it involved 4 heirs and an estate situation. And every heir wanted something different. I put together a very good creative deal. Each person was getting what they want, but none of the 4 were getting the same thing. And I knew if I presented the offer, each one would be more concerned with what the other three were getting than what they were getting, even though they told me what they wanted and I gave it to them. It was going to be frustrating. So I knew this deal was going to blow up in my face. This offer would blow up in my face. And it had 9 moving parts, this offer did. So I called up Pete Fortunato, who was the greatest deal structurer you'll ever meet. And I said, Pete, can you help me here? I'm just, this isn't going to work. I'm going to lose this deal. And so he reworked my offer and we went from 9 moving parts to 2. And I presented the offer and it was accepted. And this is still one of the best deals I've ever done because I still have that house. It's still one of our rentals. And I'm very proud of this deal. Well, another thing you don't know about me is I wrote a syndicated newspaper column in Georgia for 13 years. And with this column, it was about creative deal structuring. And that particular week, I wrote a column after I got that deal closed. And the title was Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. Because we hear the phrase used all the time, think outside the box, think outside the box. And I was very proud of that column. And I cut it out of the paper when it ran. I put it on a plaque. I sent it down to Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. So 3 days later, I get an email from Pete. And Pete can say more with less words than anybody you've ever met. So this email only had 2 words. I'm saying the greatest outside the box thinker. And his email just said, what box? Which rocked my world, obviously. And I ended up driving down and spending some time with him saying, can you explain to me what this means? And here's the lesson. He said, for investors to reach their full potential as creative deal makers, they have to realize they're not working outside of some box. If they think they're working outside of some box, then they're dragging that box with them. It's chained to their ankle, and they're going to take it with them wherever they go because they're working outside of it. And Roy, I find realtors have the hardest problem of all because all y'all are taught is all the things you can't do. I mean, one lesson after another, when you go to all your training classes, they just give you all the things you can't go do. So you talk about the box, holy cow. And so that's how What Box was born, was for you to reach your full potential. The goal we have is to help people get in a position they like better than where they currently are. And said a different way, is our job as real estate investors is not to buy, sell, or rent houses. Our job is to solve people's real estate problems. And that's what I do every day, all day long, is I just solve people's real estate problems, whether it's an owner or a seller, a lender, a borrower, a tenant, a landlord, an investor, whatever it is. That's what I do all day long. And that's what we should all be doing. And the more problems you solve, the more success you will find. Okay, we have like 2 minutes left. I'm open for a question.
Anybody have one last question?
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, Roy looks like Roy does.
Dun,
Roy.
dun, dun, dun,
Roy?
dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roy.
So I understand wholesaling, but I haven't fully wrapped my head around the idea of making, say, 40 or 50,000 from a elderly seller just because I can give them cash right away if I know what their house could be assigned for in essence. So I forget the name of the street, but the example you did where you were going to pay the property taxes, not, exercise the option for at least 10 years. That is almost, I mean, a new way of wholesaling almost, where I'm reducing the value of the property. I'm helping somebody stay in their home, but if they're elderly or whatnot, or only figure they need 5 or 6 years, 10 years, that's almost a good alternative to the idea of wholesaling, you think? Sort of?
Well, no, because they're nowhere close to the same, because with wholesaling, someone's selling their house and you're selling to someone else, or you're doing an assignment of contract, which means you don't even ever buy the house. And that's not investing at all, because you're like a grocer, and you buy a can of beans for $1, you sell the can of beans for $3, and you get to keep 25 cents profit after all expenses and taxes are paid. But if you want another quarter, you got to go buy another can of beans for $1, sell it for $3, and it's a never-ending treadmill. Investors are a different breed because they, instead of killing the goose that lays a golden egg, they will keep the goose and they will nurture the goose and they will feed the goose and make sure the goose is safe because they want that egg once a month, that golden egg, in the form of a rent check. But in what I'm doing with option work, it's a little bit different because of Dodd-Frank. I can't loan money, or it's very difficult. There's a lot of rules to loaning money to an owner occupant. Okay. So they live there and they're a civilian. An option is not a loan. So let me give you another example. I door knocked on a house not long ago and it had a blue tarp on the roof. And the blue tarp was older. You know, it had been there for a while. So when I knocked on the door, I was like, why do you have a blue tarp on the roof? And they said, well, we have a roof leak. And I said, well, why hasn't it been fixed? As it turns out, the insurance company did send them a check, but guess what they didn't do with the check?
Use it to fix the roof.
Yeah, guess what they used the check for?
A new couch.
You know, a trip to Biloxi,
A cruise.
something they deserved, whatever it is, they paid off credit cards. But the thing is, they didn't have the money for the roof. And so I said, I will put a new roof on your house. It won't cost you a dime. In exchange, I want the right to buy your property at some point in the future. I've done this many, many times over the years. So what benefit do they get from this transaction?
A new roof.
Yes. What benefit do I get?
The option to buy the house for
The right to buy the house at some point in the future. And I do this with air conditioners. I do this with broken windows. I do this with trees against the house. I do this with hanging gutters. I do this with, I see a plumber's van in the driveway. You know, I'm always stopping and asking people, and I'm willing to take on the monetary responsibility of whatever they want done. But I don't give them the money to put a new roof on the house, do I? They've already proved you don't do that. That's a stupid thing to do. So what I do instead is I will have my contractor go out. They will hire my contractor. My contractor will put a new roof on their house, and then I'll pay my contractor. End result is they finally have a new roof on their house. So do I see this as taking advantage of somebody? No, because people would rather live in a dry house than a wet house.
Oh yeah. So no, I love this creative strategy. I'm saying I like this strategy better than the wholesaling because like you said, I'm nurturing. I'm allowing somebody to stay in a home that they want to, not just helping them sell it because I can get them cash right away. So it's just a mind switch that I'm enjoying understanding. So thank you.
Yeah. No problem. My pleasure. And we're at time, guys.
Thank
You
you
think I
so
can
much.
go around and get people? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
What? Go ahead,
sorry.
Rick. Go, Roy.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I'm gonna go offer to do driveway power washing for the option to buy people's houses. Maybe is a
Yeah.
good start if they don't want to pressure wash their driveway. Start low.
Yeah, well, you know, my contractors, you know, they know that if they go bid on someone's house that they need a new hot water heater and that person can't afford it or, you know, wants another way, one of the things my plumber will say is, hey, I got a fellow that will pay to have the hot water heater put in. They just, you know, he wants to talk to you and he wants the right to buy your house at some point in the future. I do a lot of option work.
Wow.
And almost nobody else does option work. It's amazing to me that very few people touch this tool. Okay, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and what little time we had, but we really appreciate it. I think everybody got a lot of value out of that. And we'll see everybody next Tuesday. Go to the website, Virtual REI Academy, see what we have there. And there's a webinar on there for free also.
Before you
So-
go, did you, I'm sorry, Jane, to Sharon, no, Jane, I'm sorry, to interrupt you again. Do you have can you put in the chat the contact or the classes? You know, the site we would go to. Interested in that.
billingcamcook.com. That's what she's looking for.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and if you
Yeah.
if you put in Bill Cook Real Estate, especially Bill Cook Real Estate Georgia, you'll find me. My number's all over the place. I mean, my phone number is 770. Here, I'll put it in chat.
It's BillandKimCook.com. Got it.
Yep.
That's it. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
highly recommend taking the class because this is where I've learned a lot of my option stuff.
Yeah, and there's my phone number. Now I don't use a Google number, and I don't have a call center, and I don't have there's no one in the Philippines that's going to answer that number, and I don't have 3 phones. I have 1 phone. That's it. It's an amazing thing. If you call me and I'm working, I don't answer, and it will say, don't send me a text message. Just leave a message and I'll call you. But we're not going to text message. We're not going to email, because I have too many questions to ask you when you call me. And emails and text messages are too hard to get to questions that I need to get answered. I'd rather just have a phone call. Okay.
I imagine your dyslexia probably is a major impediment to the texting part. So you just rather have the conversation. It makes so much more sense.
No, I've learned to write. So that's not really it. Is I need to hear voice inflection. I need to hear how you're speaking. I need to, if I can, I'll do Zoom. But if I can't, I'd prefer in person, where we have a cup of coffee, where I can be in person and I can watch your body language.
Right. The body language.
It's everything to me. If you're texting me, wait, I'm going to put a thing in the chat session. And Susan, I want you to play with me for a second, okay?
Oh, more. Okay. All right.
Read that for me.
I didn't say he hit his wife.
Good. What's it mean? No trick, 7 words.
I didn't say he hit his wife. I didn't say he hit his wife. Why are you accusing
Good.
me of saying that
Good.
I claimed he hit his wife? That's how I'm reading that.
Okay. How many of you out there have had a text message or an email with someone and they took it the wrong way and it blew up in your face? All of us, for the most part, all of us, right? Me.
Oh,
I've had it blow up a couple times in my face. So here's
Sure.
why. You ready for this? You ready for this, Susan?
sure.
I didn't say he hit his wife. 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 I didn't say he hit his wife.
This is
And now you know
This is
why I have to, the face-to-face is everything to me. The T-bar is everything to me. It's how I do my deals. Okay. If someone's having a problem, we're going to get face-to-face. Thank God for Zoom. So nowadays, when people are far away from me, I'm going to get them on Zoom. I'm going to look at their face and I want to see them as best I can.
No,
So this is now like Star Trek. Zoom is allowing Star Trek to be an actual thing. Okay. Well,
Good night.
folks, I'm 63 and my bedtime is 8:30. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, but my bedtime is 8:30. So it's time to go to bed, get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a start to a good day. If you can, join us tomorrow night for the free deal school.